I must say good evening now, right? Almost 6. No, it was a question asked to me about PPT. I thought I was told no PPTs, so I didn't do it, which was good. Very unusual for an IT guy not to have a PPT. But I think I'll talk without PPT now. I think we heard, as we said, the government's side of what are the challenges, what are the success stories, which are very encouraging to hear and important. We heard technologies, hardware side and other software side which are coming up. What I'm going to talk really is something different, completely a different dimension, and to my mind is the most important. We are talking of, before I get into the detail of what I'm talking, we are talking of India becoming middle income country and developed country, which is all might happen, might slow down, I don't know. But one thing which is happening unfortunately is, and we all know that, is that inclusive growth is not happening. The growth is happening, but inclusive growth is not happening. Now I was taking it at a face value until I just downloaded one app on this iPad from World Bank, and you can quickly draw graphs. I was drawing 2 graphs, in fact, while we were speaking, just to show you a data, just as a data point. If you draw a graph of child mortality under 5, a 20-year graph, which is what I was drawing, take China, Bangladesh and India. The gap between China and India has grown bigger over the last 20 years. Still worse, I must tell you this, Bangladesh, which has a lower per capita GDP than us, has gone below us in terms of child mortality rate starting 2005. I have this graph right in front of me. I couldn't project it here. I was drawing same graph on education, female dropout rate in the school. I am getting same number again. Bangladesh has crossed us last 5-6 years. So I think this inclusive growth story is really real one, and we got to do something about it. And what I'm going to talk here is, can IT help to make it happen? Can IT be an enabler in some form to make it happen? And this is based on my experience of last 15-20 years working with government in my capacity of Mass Tech. Also doing a lot of development for government outside India. We have been one of the major players outside India for government. And if I look at next 15 to 20 years, it is very clear that hardware prices are going down, communication prices are going down. We are going to connect all the villages all over, and Gujarat has already done it. All this is going to happen. But there is one thing which will be missing and which will always be a problem, will be the applications. Your real problem is going to have applications, and application will slow down this whole process of computerization severely. And if we really want to do inclusive growth, and if we think software can do quite a bit of enablement of this inclusive growth, like NREGA applications, like applications of social justice and so on and so forth, where I'm really seeing the benefit of computerization, where we are preventing the funds being misused at a ground level through IT. I'm seeing it myself, so much so that you spend X amount in IT about making things happen, and application level is what I will talk. Now, if I look at my experience of I don't know how many applications and projects, I have lost a count in government. There are 5 steps or 5 mega processes that have to be, 5 processes that have to be managed properly. And all of them together have to be sequentially managed so well that we make it happen. So I'll just point out now, we don't have time to discuss all of them. The first and real point is, we need to set the goal of an IT system, objective of IT system very clearly and precisely defined. Whether it is reducing child mortality rate or whether it is reducing leakage of misuse of funds or whatever it could be. And all of these goals actually can be well defined now because there's so much of research happening at social level that we are counting everything at a global level and we can compare ourselves how we are doing better. I was just reading Doing Business. There is a World Bank publication called Doing Business Well or something, I forget that. They benchmark all the countries along how fast you can do business in that country. Unfortunately, we are not ranked very high, but they have some 55, 60 processes which are mentioned there. How much time it takes to close a business, how much it takes to start a business, how much it takes to buy a land, etc., etc. Now, each one of these are actually a measurement for your IT system. And we can benchmark ourselves against other states as well as the world, and then keep that as a goal. So clearly defined goal is sometimes we find missing. And if we have that, that is the biggest engine for success of an application. Because then everyone is clear what we are trying to achieve. And I found in my experience of many years that the goals were not properly defined. Application developers were doing X, the leader wanted Y, and what happened was Z. This is a repeated story, but repeatedly, not done properly, unfortunately. So one is goal. The second part really is, at a very high level, I would say, and although that's not an issue per se, but it is an issue to some extent, is the budget that at a very high level government gives to IT. I think if you really look at government actually is nothing but two functions. One is policy formation and other is decision making to serve citizens. And that part is really information processing part. So to that extent, it is like financial services where it is completely information driven business. And if you compare what financial services companies spend today on IT versus what government spend as proportion, it's a very, very low percentage. Financial services today will spend almost 10-15% of their revenue on IT. I am not suggesting that. We may not have that much money to spend. But a 3% budget is something that is minimum, which is very effective budget. Few states have done it, but I think it is not properly implemented still. So we need to put the budget very clearly for the departmental head so that he or she knows what they can spend, because that removes a lot of issues really in terms of how much they can do, how fast they can do. Otherwise, there is so much of heartburn which happens between a user and the private party or application provider that could solve a lot of issues of making project move fast. But I won't spend much time on it because most of the time I hear from people that I have enough budgets, I don't know how to make it move fast. That is what all my government friends tell me, and I believe them. So to solve that, I have next 3 steps which are really important. One is, on time and again we have found definition of project very weak. And I don't blame government for it. Government is not in IT business. But then they should involve private party to define their application. And I found this very, very useful in an application called APDRP. I don't know whether you know about it. This is an electrical power energy application which is rolled out all over country. Our role there was actually not developer, was a consultant. So we were advising how to buy IT and how to buy applications for government. And I tell you, it was so much of an eye-opener for me sitting on that other side, and an example of how fast the applications can be handed over to implementer or developers and how fast the systems can move. We are involved in 13, 14 states, and each of these places, the applications, it's going to be a big success story according to me, what will happen in energy sector. And part of it is because well-defined applications by involving consultants like us and few others who are doing at that point of time. So defining an application, once you define the goals, is as important as anything else, and one of the weakest area, again, in terms of our interaction. The next process, which is the 4th point I'm making, I talked about high-level goals, I talked about budget, I talked about purchase, I talked about definition of application. The 4th one is purchasing process. Again, government has its own compulsions, own issues of transparency and being above which they should do. At the same time, it complicates this whole process and decision making. I don't have solution to offer, but I think something has to be done because IT project, it gets more complicated simply because IT can't be compared like buying hardware, which is comparable point to point. Software, unfortunately, is not. Services, unfortunately, are not. So I think we need to evolve jointly, private sector and public sector together, to a different way of buying. There are a lot of experiments happening in Singapore, a lot of experiments happening in US on this kind of thing. We wearing our industry hat, NASSCOM hat. We are doing something with government in Delhi with the Department of IT. But the point I'm making is this is a process which is also fairly broken. And if we can improve it, I have seen some bids which we have done 3 times, 4 times. Rebidding has been happening. And the application is not moving anywhere. If we can improve some of this, I think we will be going great way, and there is a lot we can do again jointly as a public-private partnership. And last, and actually probably equally important, or if not most important, is implementation. That means making the actually project happen. And the challenges there come are the accountability. I think accountability has to be clearly defined by government as to who is in charge of this. They have their issues, of course, in terms of movement of people, transfers, etc., etc. We'll have to find some solution for this whole thing. Transfers have to be done. It has its own advantages, as one of the secretaries was telling me just some time back. And I see the point why it should be done. At the same time, for the IT project, which are longer than the cycle time of transfers, all go for a toss when that happens, because there is no accountability. New person comes, obviously new areas he or she wants to look at, and then the whole issue get again delayed. So how do we improve this implementation, not only at a top level, but even at a bottom level, who is in charge of what, does clarify and make things move fast. And if we can do all this, again, I don't want to speak long, each one of these is a big subject. I have a lot of points under each one of these subheads. But the point I'm making is, it is our joint responsibility of private sector and government to see that improve the speed of applications. That means from conceiving the application till implementation at maybe 1/3 or 1/4 of the time that it takes. If we can do it, I can tell you, we will really create a revolution of usage of IT in this country, because we are not short of hardware, we are not short of communication bandwidth, which will all come. We have challenges there, but I think it is solved by spending money. It is more budget issue, but this is not alone a budget issue. This is much larger, softer issues that we need to handle. And if we don't solve them, we will remain behind. And we are talking of inclusive growth and making IT one of the tools of inclusive growth, which I'm seeing in the application that we are doing. We can do it, however, we will not able to achieve it. And as I showed you some more graphs, there may be many more graphs where we will remain behind, is what worries me. So I think improve the speed of making applications happen is only one message that I give. And as I said, to summarize, it is about defining goals which are at much higher level, proper budget, defining applications, purchase process, and implementation have to be all looked back, completely changed, completely re-engineered, completely redefined, and that is the only solution we have to make difference to this country through IT. Thank you.